Okay, we are live. We are recording and just checking to make sure. Okay, we have people chiming in now. Hey, Alan, how are you? Nice to see that you're coming on. Okay. Hey, Jamie, how are you? Okay, let's get going. I will quickly introduce myself and then we will get right into it and introduce Kaley. But I did want to give a few little logistics first. But before that, if you don't know who I am, my name is Renee Roberts. I am a functional nutrition counselor, a vitality coach, and a registered hypnotherapist and founder of Nourish to Live RX and your host for this evening for this session. And I hope you enjoy the session. I'm looking forward to it. We have Kaley here that I will introduce in a minute. If you have questions, just a few logistics. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Or you can type them in the Q&A box. If you are watching us live from Facebook, type them in the comments. I will keep track of them. I will keep an eye out for them. If you have any questions that you want to ask live, you can raise your hand and I'll bring you on audio and you can ask Kaley anything. And so feel free to chime in whenever, and I will keep an eye on the questions as they come in. Let's see. Let's introduce Kaley now. So Kaley is going to teach us about self-talk and why the way we talk to ourselves is important. So Kaley is a certified health and life coach who specializes in supporting caregivers. And she herself has been a caregiver professionally for over 25 years and has a degree in human services, has been a foster parent, and has worked in many caregiving roles professionally. She helps fill the gaps in services and support for caregiver needs. And she saw so many caregivers lose their own identity while caring for their loved ones. So Kaley, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I know that I have some caregivers in my group. And actually, I know there's a few that are actually on here right now on Zoom. So this is a great segue. I'm going to pass the floor over to you and you can go ahead and get started. Tell us your story and take it away.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much, Renee, for having me in your group and sharing your community with me. I'm very excited to talk about this topic and very passionate. I'm glad to hear there's some caregivers in your world that are even here tonight. I've also been a caregiver to my 92-year-old grandmother who has recently passed, but it has been about a 5-year stint doing that. And it was such a wonderful honor to be able to do that at the same time as there's lots of challenges that go along with that. So just to start in on our topic tonight of self-talk and why the way we talk to ourselves is so important. So self-talk is really our internal dialogue. And it's influenced by our subconscious mind. So we're not even tuned into it a lot of the times. And it really reveals our thoughts, our beliefs, our questions, and our ideas. So self-talk can be both negative and positive. It can really be encouraging, but it can also be demotivating if we're not tuned in and we're not careful. So it's all about just building awareness. We're just going to build awareness around self-talk tonight. So negative self-talk is very common, and it's basically that inner dialogue that you have with yourself that might be limiting your ability to maybe believe in yourself, to reach your true potential. It's any of those thoughts that really diminish your ability to make positive changes in your life. And it also has to do a lot with our confidence in ourselves. Negative self-talk can not only be stressful, but it can really prevent us from having the life that we want. So just to start out with a personal story that kind of explains how shifting my self-talk helped me shift my life. So just to tap into a quick little story here. So I tried to be the perfect mom. I tried to be the perfect wife, the perfect employee, the perfect daughter, the perfect so on, all the things for so many years. And I thought if I could just do all the things for everybody else, that I could really make a difference in this world. And and I didn't need to focus on myself because I was totally fine. But what I discovered is that I could only spin so many plates at one time. And eventually they all came crashing down. And that was absolutely devastating. It was super sad. It was really hard to accept. And it was really initiated by something that was really far out of my control. And yet I had convinced myself that I had control over it. Recovering control freak here, if anybody can relate with that. So I went through all the thoughts. If if you would have just tried a little harder, if you could have just controlled the situation a little bit better, if um, if you could have been in 10 places at once, you could have really made that difference. But what I learned was when I was knocked down, that it was absolutely exhausting spinning all of the plates all of the time. And what if there was another way that I hadn't considered before, and a way that would be easier, a way that didn't leave me feeling exhausted or impatient or run down, crabby, even judgmental. None of the ways that I wanted to be feeling, and definitely not the person that I wanted to be in the world. And the other place I started talking, or I started paying attention to, was the way I was talking to myself. It was definitely not supportive. And it really kind of sounded more like a bully or a critic. And how I could have, and how I should have, could have done better, all of those pieces. And I was listening to one of my mentors during this time, and she explained this negative self-talk to me in this way. And so I stole this title from her because it made so much sense, and it really helped me tune in to the negative self-talk when I gave it a name, when I gave it a title. It's kind of catchy, it's kind of funny, so I like to share it. A tiny bit inappropriate, sorry, Renee. But what we call this negative self-talk is the itty bitty shitty committee. And I really had to build awareness around this piece. And I had to get control over the conversation that was taking place in my head. And I had to recognize and get honest about the quality of my thoughts, what they sounded like. So when I checked in and I really got honest, they sounded something like, nothing I do is good enough. No matter how hard I try, it is still wrong. I'm exhausted, but if I stop or slow down, I'll let someone else down. Does any of this sound familiar to anybody? Can anybody relate with that piece? So I came to the realization that the most important relationship that I have in my life is first with myself. Our mental health matters so much, and we don't really ever take the time to acknowledge how much our mental health actually even has that impact on our physical health. And it is really impacted by the way that we talk to ourselves and the relationship that we're having with ourselves. So during this time, I knew that things had to change, that I couldn't keep doing all of the things all of the time and have the continual itty bitty shitty committee in my head. And I was lucky enough to be guided by someone at that time that was really into self-development. And they suggested that I write a letter of apology to myself. And I thought, well, wow, that's kind of strange. That's a really strange idea, but what do I have to lose? I'm desperate in wanting a different way here, right? So when I did this exercise, a lot of unworthiness started to come up for me that I was completely unaware of. And for the first time in my life, I was able to start to build awareness of these unworthiness issues, and things started to make sense. So my letter sounded something like this. I am sorry for denying you happiness when that is what you truly wanted. I am sorry for not giving you the appropriate time to heal. I am sorry for not practicing self-care. I am sorry for saying yes when I really wanted to say no. I am sorry for not forgiving you when you made mistakes. I am sorry for not listening to my body when I really needed to take a break. And the letter went on and on. But the magic part here is it was the first step in taking back my life and focusing on myself. And the amazing thing is when I did this and lots of other things, but when this was at the very beginning, when I did this, it really helped to start taking back my life. And over time of practicing this positive self-care or this positive self-talk, I was able to have more patience. I all of a sudden had time for me. I was able to show up in the world the way that I truly wanted to show up. But I had to uncover my worthiness issues because that began to explain to me why I was talking to myself the way I was. And not suggesting that everyone has worthiness issues, but there's always something underneath what our relationship is with ourselves. That's just what my experience was. So, and also when I started to practice the I am statements, they're so powerful. They actually started to become my beliefs over time. And I really started to believe in myself. So, because once we start to create those beliefs within us through our self-talk, that's where we actually take action from. But like I said, I had to make a change and commit to start thinking differently. I share this with all of you so you know what I experienced and why I am so passionate to share this with all of you. I know all of our circumstances are different, but they become way less important when we start to take back the conversations taking place in our heads and we start to work on our inner game. And it's really, truly the beginning of developing self-compassion. I'm sorry, I keep moving over because the sun is setting and I keep getting my sun in my eyes. So now we just want to talk about some benefits to positive self-talk and even positive thinking. So there's actually health benefits. So it's not just about improving the relationship with yourself, which is great, but there's also other reasons why, which are remarkable health benefits. So so studies suggest that positive thinking and optimism can really be effective stress management tools. Indeed, having a more positive outlook on life can provide you with some real health benefits. So just to go over some of these, there is increased vitality, greater life satisfaction, because we're believing in ourselves, we're doing more of the things that we want. Improved immune function. When we're under stress, our immune system is suppressed. Reduced pain goes right along with that. Better cardiovascular health. Better physical well-being. Who doesn't want a better physical well-being? Less stress, right? And less anxiety. So just recognizing the benefits, the health benefits to this positive self-talk. And research also suggests that people with positive self-talk may have the mental skills to allow them to solve problems better. Who wouldn't want to be a better problem solver? To think differently. And the reason why they think this is because they're more efficient at coping with hardships and challenges because they are in tune and connected to their possibilities and their opportunities. When we're laser focused on the negative, we are not aware of the opportunities and possibilities that are offered to us every day. But when we start to shift that and we start to improve that relationship with ourselves, we're not so tunnel visioned in on the things going wrong or beating ourselves up. We have a much wider lens. So this is where I really want to build awareness and raise awareness of how important our mental and our self-talk is and how it affects our mental and physical health. It really, really does. And after COVID and all the things that we've went through, I really think that we could all boost our mental and physical health, and we can do it ourselves. We have the power just within ourselves. So I think that's so awesome. So when we start to engage in negative self-talk is when we really begin to get into trouble. And as you notice your self-talk, just start to tune into it and just listen, almost tune into it like a radio. Does it sound like that bully or critic, or does it sound more like a friend? And there is a no judgment zone here. We are just building awareness. So just bring curiosity and be like, that's interesting. I was really hard on myself back there. More than likely it's out of habit, but once you are aware of it, it's easier to notice, right? So building awareness is so powerful because we can walk around for years and years and not notice something and not pay attention to something. But once we begin to build awareness around our self-talk, then it's really hard to unsee something, and it's really hard to unnotice something. So that's why this piece is so important, to raise awareness and build awareness, because we can't unsee things. So the next piece here is really, before we can learn to practice, really truly practice the self-talk, and is we must identify the negative thinking that we might fall into at times. So this type of thinking and self-talk generally falls into 4 categories. So once again here, no judgment. We are only building curiosity. We are only building awareness through curiosity. So, so just noticing some of these 4 thinking patterns. The first one is personalizing. We blame ourselves for everything. Have you ever been there? It's all my fault. If I could have only, yeah. So that's not helpful, but just recognizing if you're signing up for that. And guess what? That brings us right down the rabbit hole of that negative self-talk. But once again, if we build awareness when we're doing this, it's much easier to start shifting. Magnifying. You focus on the negative aspects of the situation, ignoring all of the positives. So we're just magnifying we're putting a magnifying glass just on this one piece, even though there's lots of other pieces. We're magnifying the situation. Catastrophizing is the next one. You expect the worst. Who has spent time in worst case scenario, right? Yeah, I think we all have. So here's my favorite thing that I love to do with my clients when we start to have a conversation and they're going into worst case scenario mode. I just invite them, if you want to spend time in worst case scenario, that's great. But I ask you to spend equal time in best case scenario, because it's just as likely to happen. Worst case scenario really isn't very likely to happen. And we spend a lot of time there. So just recognizing that, am I in worst case scenario? And if I am, I can just tap myself on the shoulder and be like, oh yeah, I'm not participating in that anymore. I'm going to explore best case scenario and see what that looks like. And the next negative thinking category is polarizing. So this is when you see the world in just black and white, good or bad, there's nothing in between. So I'm sure we've all been there before, where, we were really one side or the other, and really inviting in the middle ground is super beneficial in really helping us not get into the negative thinking patterns, which then is just a breeding ground for the negative self-talk. So when you begin to recognize the types of negative thinking that maybe you're signing up for, you can work to turn it into positive thinking once you start to identify it. And this task requires practice and time. It doesn't develop overnight. But the good news is it can be done. And what we're doing is we're creating new neural pathways. So I'm going to share these scenarios I'm going to share with you are just examples of how we can start to shift our negative self-talk into positive self-talk. And again, I recognize this takes practice, but once you start to pay attention and recognize some of your own negative self-talk, maybe in some of these scenarios, it might help you start to develop the skills to flip or to reframe when these thoughts start to occur. So I'm going to give you some examples here. First one is the negative. We'll start with the negative one. I'll disappoint everyone if I change my mind. Who's been there before, right? So how we can reframe it to be more encouraging and more empowering and still true is, I have the power to change my mind. Others will understand. So if your friend called you and told you she changed her mind, would you be mad? No, you would understand. So give yourself that understanding as well. Here's another example. I failed and I embarrassed myself. Ooh, that's a good one. Who's been there before, right? That's awful. And here's how we can truly reframe it where it's still true, but it's empowering and it's encouraging. Is I'm proud of myself for even trying, because failure is only feedback, and that took courage. Doesn't that sound better? Isn't that a better place to source from versus, oh my gosh, I failed and I'm embarrassed. You're an idiot, or however it goes. The next example is I'm overweight and out of shape. I might as well not even bother. So how can we reframe that one? We could try with, I am capable and I am strong and I want to get healthier for me. Still true, but so much more potential, so many more opportunities and possibilities we're tuned into versus negativity, right? This is a good one to even share with the kids in our world. I let everyone down on my team because I didn't score. Remembering that sports is a team event, we win and lose together. And actually, when we lose, we learn so much more about ourselves, about teams, about each other. Another negative example is I've never done this before and I'll be bad at it. It seems like the older we get as we go through life, the least, especially for me anyway, the less that I want to try new things. So I really have to be aware of that and really challenge myself here. And so I have to remember this on a daily basis. Is it's wonderful opportunity for me to learn from others and grow. And every single time, and I know that might sound like overly positive, but every single time I do something out of my comfort zone or something that I'm not good at, I always learn and grow, and I'm always so happy I did it. And then the last example here is there is no way this will work. There's just no way. And how can we reframe that? I can and will give it my all to make it work. And if we do our best and it still doesn't work, then we did our best and we can feel good about that. So I hope those examples were helpful for you to really start to reframe and start to flip that story. So basically, these self-talk shifts are describing one of my favorite quotes, which my coach has told me many times, and I have it written right here by my desk for when I need a reminder to stay out of the ditch mentally. It's stop fighting for your limitations and start fighting for your possibilities. And I have to be aware of that because so many times I want to fight for my excuse. And I have to be aware, okay, I need to stop fighting for my excuse here and I need to get connected with what my possibilities are. But this all started shifting through my self-talk, through this internal dialogue I was having with myself. So positive self-talk takes practice. It is not our natural instinct. If you're generally negative self-talk, like most people are, you can learn to shift this inner dialogue to be more encouraging and more empowering. However, forming a new habit takes time and effort, but over time, our thoughts can shift and positive self-talk can become the new norm. And it's really through, like I said, creating those new neural pathways in our brain. The more we practice them, the faster we will start to learn them. And then that will be in our subconscious. So just some tips here for everybody to identify when you start to get into a negative self-trap. So certain scenarios might increase your self-doubt and might lead you more to the negative self-talk. So for example, family issues might be particularly hard for somebody. And they know that's when I engage in negative self-talk, like that's my trigger. So recognizing this and learning this is wonderful because pinpointing when you experience the most negative self-talk can really help you anticipate and prepare how you're going to show up differently. So you can kind of mentally rehearse how it's going to go. When I start to beat myself up, I am going to be aware. So I'm going to have a new story that I'm going to tell myself, one that's supportive and empowering. The next tip here is to check in with your feelings. Really stop, step back, maybe during a bad day, and just evaluate your self-talk. If I'm having a bad day, am I supporting myself here? Am I being a friend, or am I here beating myself up? And maybe that's why I'm having the bad day. And how can I turn that around? How can I start to reframe? And it's just a little bit at a time. How can I turn it around? How can I try and accept my circumstance and turn my bad day around by improving the quality of my thoughts and my self-talk? Another really good tip when we're just in a space that we can tell we're on the verge of going down the negative rabbit hole is really finding humor. We can laugh at ourselves. Laughter can really help relieve stress and tension. I know I laugh at myself often when I'm starting to get really frustrated with something, and just be like, okay, really, now is this going to help you? And I can really step back and almost kind of chuckle at myself. Or when you need that boost of just that positive self-talk, find a way to get it, such as maybe even if you have to go and watch funny animal videos. I know that sounds funny, but just for a couple minutes, just to get your brain on another track. Maybe you call a friend that you always know makes you feel better or makes you laugh. But just really tap into that humor. It is really, really powerful in changing our thoughts and getting us off of that negative wavelength. Surround yourself with positive people. That's the next one. So whether or not you notice it, you can really absorb the outlook and the emotions of people around you. This includes negative and positive. So choose positive people when you can. And then the last one here is just give yourself positive affirmations. Sometimes seeing words or inspiring messages or quotes, like I shared with you, can be enough to just redirect your thought in that moment. Oh yeah, I'm fighting for my excuse. That's what I see when I look at that quote. Where is an opportunity I can connect with here? Post small reminders in your office or in your home or in your car, anywhere you spend a significant amount of time. I really recommend my clients to use Post-it notes. And I have them put them all over their house or their workspace to be that consistent reminder to shift their thinking. It can just say positive self-talk. It could be being my own friend, or becoming my biggest fan, whatever resonates with you, but just something to break that subconscious autopilot thought. And oh yeah, I'm doing something else here. And so just to end this presentation here is, I want to wrap it up with a quote. And I find it so powerful, and I refer to it when I'm having resistance in shifting my thinking. And the quote is here. You can see it. Self-talk is the most powerful form of communication because it either empowers you or defeats you. And now I'm really in the sun. Sorry about that. So just recognizing, and I'm making it an action step for this webinar or this workshop, to really write this quote down and hang it where you can see it, so you can build awareness every day of improving your self-talk and why it's just so important. So I just want to thank you, Renee, for that. I'm just going to close my window here. Sorry.
Okay. Wow, I needed this talk about 3 days ago. I realized I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this week on Monday, and I was like, oh, I went through all 4 of those stages. Those the 4 types of negative thinking. I think I had them all.
Oh, I've been there too. Yep. And like you said, you have to kind of have a little conversation with yourself. Like, come on, we're going to have our little come to Jesus meeting now.
Oh, I know. And I love the little itty bitty shitty committee. I'm like, I got that pretty well. that committee. I'm on that committee sometimes.
Yeah, it's just catchy enough to bring with you when you can catch yourself in it, and then that can almost make you kind of laugh and be like, "Yep, I was the president on that committee today, and now I can choose to shift."
Yep. Yep. It does, I've never heard the idea to write a letter of apology to yourself. That's very interesting. Um, yeah, it's an interesting little exercise to do. I don't know if anybody on here has ever done that before, but I'm going to keep that in my back pocket.
Mhm.
We all have our ups and downs, so we all go through this. It's not like you're never going to, go in and start thinking negative thoughts and talking bad to yourself. And I like what you said too about, would your friend talk to you like this? Like, well, no, not if she was a friend,
Yeah.
right?
Or would you
So
talk to your friend that way? Like we
exactly.
really wouldn't. And that
Yeah.
exercise is really powerful. Like I said, because it uncovered things that my subconscious was not allowing me to see. And that's where I could really start. Once I could shine a flashlight on the reason why I was speaking that way to myself, then I could really start to work there. And so then the shift really was much, much faster then, because I was able to focus there. So that's why I share that piece, because it was really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you get into this predicament where you are, in this negative self-talk, how long does it normally take to to change that habit? I know you had mentioned habits do take some time. Um, so I'm just curious, how
Yeah,
long you think it would take, or, how long should we expect it to take?
yeah. Well, it's just how much time and attention that you put on it, because the more repetition builds belief. So if we, like I said, if we have those post-it notes, like we're constantly having, not constantly, but consistently having those reminders, it is a fast, it really expedites the process, because we are interrupting that old neural pathway and we're creating the new one. So the more that you can engage in, it can just be a second. You just see the post-it note when I go to the bathroom, and I just see the other one when I open the fridge, and it's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So the more that you can, and you can do that with anything you're trying to develop more of, because it's like, okay, great, we went to the workshop and we learned this, and then we walk away and life happens and we don't think about it till 3 weeks from now. When if we really seriously take it and write it down on our post-it note and put it up somewhere, we can really start to shift it right now.
Okay, awesome. Cool. And we did have a question come in from Tina, and she's asking if you would share your positive self-talk list.
My positive self-talk list, was it on back on one of my slides? Trying to remember here.
May have been something that you just had said. I don't know if it was on a slide or not.
Okay.
Um,
Let me just see. My negative thinking. Oh, the positive health benefits of the self-talk. Was it that?
she's saying it was, I have the power to change my mind.
Oh, yeah. Okay. The definitely all the examples that I used.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. Do you want me to share it in the chat, or do you want me to share it right now verbally?
What we can do too is, because I know you had like quite a few
Yeah,
examples,
I could just
you may be able to send them out via email as well.
yeah, I'll do that. I'll send them out in the email. That's a really good idea.
Yeah,
Yep.
that way they have them, and maybe the action step as well, so they
Yes.
have it, so they can
Yes, I'm gonna write
do
that
that.
down so I don't forget the
Yeah.
action
So
step
yeah, Tina said yes, thank you. Via email would be great.
and the examples. Yeah, that reframing is huge, and that is I just try to give examples because sometimes it's hard to imagine, and they're broad enough that I feel like maybe you've felt one of those before, so you can kind of relate, and then you can kind of start to implement that in your own life when you're having a negative statement. How can I reframe that, or how could it be a little more empowering and still be true?
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any other questions? Feel free to type them in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook or via Zoom, ask them in the Q&A. or you can raise your hand if you want to come on and say hi and ask your question live. You can do that as well. What I will do while people are thinking about questions, maybe I'm going to post some information in the chat that has basically a link to Kaley's website and her Facebook group. And I'm also going to post information for the event that's coming up in 2 weeks as well, and then my information. But feel free to ask any questions while I'm doing this. And let's see, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a free Facebook group that's called the Healthy Caregiver. If there is any caregivers that would want more support.
Yeah. So I put that in the link, and then your website as well. And if you have any questions for Kaley, you can reach out to her. And she'll send you an email. I'll give her your information so she can send a thank you email as well with this information from tonight, the action step and those things. And let's see. Deb's saying, great information. I should know this. Why don't I use it more often? I know, Deb, I'm the same. It's like, duh, it's almost like, yeah, this is logical. But I find when you're in that moment, you're not thinking clearly. You're just, when you had those 4 examples of, the way you could be, you just go into that worst case scenario. You're spinning that story, you're going, you're just there. And it's really hard to get out of that. So
it is. But now once we've talked about it and you catch yourself there tomorrow or next week, once we start to build awareness, you can almost kind of laugh and say, I wonder how I could spin this in best case scenario. And what would that look like for me? And it really starts to shift. It's really kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. So Tina's asking, do you have anything that deals with PTSD?
That's a really good question. I don't have anything specifically that deals with PTSD. I'm sorry, I don't specifically on that. I don't feel like I have that trained in that department to speak into that.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? I'm just going to check really quick. Nope, we're good here. It looks like I've caught everything that's come through. If there are no more questions, we can end this session, and I hope you guys actually enjoy this. I know I did. Like I said, I wish I had this talk a couple of days ago. Tina said thank you. It was a great session. So yeah, thank you so much, Kaley. It was great. This was something that I needed to hear, and I'm going to reflect. I'm going to reflect back on the last couple of days when I was in my little slump. I was my, president of my own committee.
Right.
And say what's done to make this more positive and learn from it. And I think that's the best we can do. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Let's see, is there anything else? I gave you all the information in the chat. You'll get an email if you want to see the replay of this. I'll send you a link to the replay tomorrow morning. And that way you have it if you want to, take any notes or get any information from it. And yeah, have a great night, guys. And maybe I'll see you back here in 2 weeks when we, with my next guest speaker. So thank you so much, Kaley. Thank you everyone for joining.
Well, and thank you, Renee, for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Anytime. I'm a part of your group, so I see the value you bring to the group. So, and Kaley is also in my group. So if you have questions for her in my Facebook group, which is called Fabulous Over 40, for those of you that aren't in it, Kaley can answer any questions you have as well. So awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.